Well, I'll skip the intro because that sounded better than what I would have said. I'm Greg. I do work at Full Story. I've been doing product management-y things for a bit over a decade. And I was really excited to come here and really deep dive on just one specific topic and really explore one idea, which is how do you build trust in software? Especially as product-led growth increases in popularity, it's becoming the dominant strategy. How do we make sure that we are really optimizing not just for individual conversions, but optimizing for long-term trust with our users? It works. So every good presentation starts with a quote that was in a blog post. And so as I Googled, there's tons of these, right? Executive coaches and management books and authors, they all have quotes around trust, what it means, how you earn it, right? It's incremental, it takes a process. But I liked this one, right? This is a Caribbean proverb. It's short, it's pithy, it makes for a really pretty slide, so it checks all the boxes for me. But the idea is the same with all of these, right? Trust takes a long time to build. You can't rush it, right? It's a process. So imagine you're on that island, right? You're on vacation, you're in paradise, you're in the mood for a cup of coffee, so you wander into the village. You find a nice storefront, looks like they might sell coffee. You see these smiling faces, and you ask, do you serve coffee here? To which they respond, I'd like your name, your email, and your last name, please, right? Like this just wouldn't happen ever. This would be a bizarre experience to have, right? Who is this woman? Why is she asking information about me when all I asked for was a cup of coffee, right? You'd probably walk out, you'd call your friends and tell them about the weird day you had on your paradise vacation. Because it doesn't happen in real life, but on the internet, it happens, right? A similar question, hey, where can I go? Where can I find high quality used clothing? Might take you to a site like this. Fixed modal, I can't close it. I can't see anything about the site until I give them personal information. If I go to the next one, I might end up here. My first name, my last name, my email password, my gender, and my location. Before I even know if they carry the brand or type of clothing I care about, right? This doesn't happen in real life, and it doesn't happen anymore. I'll give a confession here, right? Those are old screenshots that I took a while ago. If you looked up those sites today, ThreadUp has completely dropped this strategy, right? Completely open now. Nordstrom has completely dropped Outlook as a property and integrated them in a different way. Now, what happened? I didn't work there. I don't know, right? But I have a theory that at least trust had something to do with it. So enter Katie Sherwin. She's a senior UX specialist for the Nielsen Norman Group. I think everyone here knows NNG. Hands? All right, if you don't know them, look them up, and you're in for a treat. It's one of the best resources out there, especially around user experience. And a few years ago, she published an article that introduced this idea of a pyramid of trust. The idea is everyone starts here at the bottom, where no trust is established. And just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you want to ascend that pyramid, you have to satisfy all of the lower levels. And at the very top, you find yourself at a willingness to commit to an ongoing relationship. Now, for empathy, right, Katie gives us some of the questions that a user might ask themselves at each one of these levels. So level one, this is just baseline relevance. Is this site even doing what I need it to do, right? Did I end up at the right place? At level two, you have interest and preference over other options. And this is where it's, okay, baseline relevance has been met, but are there other people who do this better? At level three, we start asking for things, right? And you have to make sure that if you're asking for personal information, that what you are giving in return is valuable enough for it. Level four builds on that. This is trust with sensitive or financial information. And this is, do I actually trust them as a credible place to hold my information? And then finally, you reach level five, right? Which is, all right, I want an ongoing relationship with this business, right? That might be a recurring charge. This might be a link with another account. Now, if you read the article, this is the really, really key insight, right? And it's obvious after you read it, but the idea is that the site's requests and the user's trust have to be in equilibrium, right? If you're making demands at higher levels of commitment, before you've addressed those lower levels, it's going to fail. And so now when you think about this and you have this framework in mind, you start to see it, right? You look at ThreadUp again, that disequilibrium was clear to see. The user's actually down here, right? They're trying to get to a level 1, but the site is assuming that they're either at a level 3, they're ready to give their personal information, or they're already at a level 5. Now, why does this happen? Tons of reasons. Sometimes it's just a matter of copying the leader. You see LinkedIn do it, you see Facebook do it. But if you don't have that sort of household recognition, if you don't already have that word of mouth, right, that's not the strategy that you want to follow. You need to tell people who you are and why you should be trusted. And then there's obvious reasons of pressure from marketing, conversion optimization, friction reduction, a lot of good things, right? Quote unquote growth hacking. And these can all be really good things. But if you're optimizing for long-term relationships rather than just lead acquisition, then you need to think across the entire product experience. And it takes intentionality because it's really, really to fall out of that equilibrium. But once you have this framework, if you're like me, you start to see it everywhere. This is another, I hope no one here works for Nextdoor, I'll feel bad, but Nielsen Group called this one out as well, right? Maybe they have the word of mouth, maybe not, but as a first-time user, I'm still at that level 1, and you're already asking for an ongoing relationship. I'll steal another old experience that's not around anymore, Tiny Prints. And this is one where the user's actually ascended pretty far up the pyramid, right? I'm probably ready to make a purchase. I'm at that level 4, but I'm not ready for an ongoing commitment, and I see no incentive to take an ongoing commitment. But I'm stuck, right? There is no guest checkout. I have to go through and create an account just to make a purchase. So here the user is stuck with either making a decision they're not comfortable with, or more likely than not, abandoning their cart. I just kind of wanted to use this one. I'm not even sure where you are here. I think they actually slid back down the pyramid a little bit, which was unique in all the examples. But this is where Katie and Nielsen Norman Group leave us, right? It's actually a pretty short article. It's a pretty simple framework, but it's been stuck in my head for years, and I find myself pulling it out and applying it to different situations. And they asked me to come talk here, and I said, I really want to stretch this metaphor and see how far we can take it. Because one of the things that I think is interesting is the business model really, really matters when you think about this. You could argue every company should try to ascend the pyramid of growth or pyramid of trust, right? But they don't have to. If I'm an ad-based model, I can probably get away with a level 2 commitment. If I'm just lead gen, I can probably get away with just a level 3. If I'm e-commerce or retail, again, I probably want that level 5, but I can get away and make money at level 4. But SaaS is unique here, right? Because by definition, you're asking for a commitment to an ongoing relationship. So if you want to be a successful SaaS company, you actually have to ascend every level of this, right? And satisfy every level of the pyramid, which makes it incredibly important for those of us in product and product-led growth in SaaS companies. So this is the Product-Led Alliance, or Product-Led Summit by the Product-Led Alliance. So how can we think about this pyramid and stretch this metaphor in a PLG where we rely on things like freemium plans or free trials to sell the product? And I think you can kind of go through and ask some of the same questions and put yourself in the shoes of the user so you know how to design to meet them where they are. So level 1, baseline relevance. This is really about the job to be done. There's whole talks on that alone, but are we really nailing when I first experienced the site? They know what I'm here to do. And then very quickly, you have to get to the differentiators, right? How is this product even better than anyone else that does it? This level 1 and 2, that's a really close collaboration with marketing, and products to make sure you're nailing a really crisp message. Once you get to level 3 and level 4, I think the responsibility really shifts back to the product team itself, right? At this point, you're usually looking at a free trial, a freemium plan, something like that. So it's actually really easy to justify the ask for personal information. But you need to make sure that what you're asking for is reasonable if you're actually optimizing for trust, right? And especially once you get into sensitive information, like, why are you asking this? If we're not transparent about why we need this information in the first place, you're not building trust, right? And you're probably losing it. And then level 5, when it comes to software as a service, in my mind is really, Does the product live up to the hype? When I went through level 1 and 2, I was sold an experience. Now I'm in the product, right? I'm trialing it myself. Is what I saw what I'm actually getting here? So a few more examples, and I'm not going to pick on other folks, right? I'm going to pick on Full Story here. This is our onboarding experience. Step 1, we're asking you what you do. It might be a fair question, but why are we asking, right? There's no answer here. If we go on, we ask a couple more questions. Oh, I lost my notes, but we'll see how this goes. And now, all right, thanks, everyone. No. So, yeah, is there any way we can get the notes to match up to the slide? Keep going, keep going, keep going. So close. All right, we're back. See, a lot of trust between me and you here. So this is our onboarding experiment, right? We're asking some of these questions, and we're asking the company size, we're asking the company type, and we give you a little information, right? This is, hey, we're gonna tailor the product a bit. But what does that mean, right? Like if I actually choose I'm a bigger company, will I get more seats? Will I get better features depending on the company type that I pick here? Now, if you forgot, I work at Full Story, so I actually have some inside baseball here. We used to have a feature called a rage grade. You might remember it. And the idea was we looked at frustration heuristics on your site. We then compared you across other people who answered this the same way and gave you a grade, right? So if your site is totally zen, your users are happy, you probably got an A. If you're Ticketmaster on Taylor Swift ticket release day, probably less, right? Probably looking at a D. And the thing is, we sunset that feature 2 years ago, right? But until we started to comb through our site, really thinking about, hey, are we optimizing for trust? We just kind of missed the fact that we were still asking for information that we didn't even need ourselves. All right. Can you actually advance the notes one more slide? Thank you. So I want to show some good examples too, and I promise you we get more and more positive as this presentation goes along. Because here's Miro, right? Great product, great onboarding experience, a very similar onboarding experience where they're asking, why are you using this? And they give you automatically a reason for why they're asking, bringing that trust level, level 3, into equilibrium. Shopify, another, if you haven't gone through the onboarding experience and you have an onboarding experience, I encourage you to do it. It's fantastic. They don't ask for anything more than what they need. And when they do ask, they give an incredibly clear explanation of why and how it's going to benefit them, right? And how it's going to benefit the user specifically by answering it. All right, back to picking on Full Story. Only one more time, because I do want to kind of give an illustration on how at the higher levels you can start to slide back as well. So at this point, the user is in our product, right? They've made it through the trial, they've made it through onboarding. They're past level 4, they're trying to reach level 5. That's where we want them to be. And they go in, they want to check out one of the features they saw earlier, some of the privacy tooling we have, which is robust and functional, but it looks nothing like this, right? And this was the experience they were sold at level 1 and level 2. We're out of equilibrium there, and these are the small things that chip away at trust. And my point here is that you have to be just constantly auditing your site, right? Constantly auditing your marketing pages, making sure that that equilibrium is always there and that that story is always aligned. Okay, one more pyramid, and I promise I won't abuse this metaphor any further. But if you're in B2B, and I'm sure some folks here are, you don't only have to win over that user, right? Now you have to win over the company as well. But it's different people you have to win over. This is procurement. This is security officers. So how do you make it really easy to ascend the pyramid for those folks in an empathetic way? And again, I think you can ask some of these questions to put yourself in their shoes. At baseline relevance, it's just, hey, is this going to be a reliable product that I'm putting in front of my team? At level 2, is there a plan that actually fits what I need? I don't want to buy more than what I need. I don't want less than what I need. At level 3, you start to get into, one, do I trust them with my information, but also are they reputable, right? Who are the other companies? Do I want to be in the same company, in the same sentence as them? With level 4, you just have to have such a crisp story around your privacy, your compliance, and your security, right? You're probably already doing it, but you should use it to your advantage. And I'll give an example of that in a minute as well. And then finally, level 5, which I think especially for product managers and product organizations, the buyer's thinking to themselves, okay, I like this product, right? I'm ready to buy it, but will it still be the best product 6 months from now, 12 months from now, or will I regret that decision? And how do we overcome that sort of thing? So I'll quickly go through a few examples of how we might meet these objections at each level. And these are all good examples now. I told you we'd end on a positive note. So we're going to start with intercom, right? Baseline relevance that this is going to be a reliable and performant site. Put up a status page, right? It's really easy to see that, hey, this is a site that we can trust, we can put in front of our users. Help companies choose a plan that's actually right for them, right? If you oversell, it's going to end up in churn. It's going to end up in a loss of trust. Help them pick the right plan for them, but also make it really simple to see how they can upgrade. All right, I get to brag on full story here. Because with level 3 and 4, I think this is one where you absolutely want to just hit it head on, right? Something we built over the last year was a trust portal. It has everything a security or compliance officer would want to see. Attestations, documentations, certifications, social proof. And this is the type of effort that I can promise you is well worth it and will shorten your sales cycle. And then finally, especially for product folks here, show them that you ship. Show them that you are a product team that regularly innovates and makes the product better. And that can be public-facing roadmaps, that can be internal roadmap presentations, or you can do what Airtable does here, right? Not only are they dogfooding Airtable, but they're showing we have a proven record of shipping product. The product that you buy today will be better 6 to 12 months from now. Okay, we're back to our island. So we talked a lot about growing trust, only a little bit about maintaining it. And we don't really have time to go into that piece. But I'll say there's probably 2 things that I think are most important once you've actually acquired the customer and they have committed, if you want to keep that commitment. One, if you're a product manager, respond to feedback. Respond to every piece of feedback you get or make sure somebody is. Don't let users yell into the abyss. And don't shy away from feedback that just says, I think your product sucks. Go back, find who they are, ask them why, thank them for the time and the feedback, and see if you can't start to build trust there. 2, it's just about shipping, right? If the product has stagnated, if it's not different than the product they bought a year ago, the trust that they had in you as an innovative company when they came on board starts to get lost. So what now? What's the takeaway? What do I want you to do with all this information? One, like Daniel said, challenge me on it. It's an idea that I've really wanted to explore and started exploring, but I think there's more to do. But I'll challenge you to go through and look at your own sites, your own products, your own marketing pages through the lens of this trust pyramid. Use the language, right? Talk to your friends, talk to your coworkers, say, hey, Bob, I really think we're asking for a level 4 commitment here, and the user's still at level 2. We need to rethink this workflow. And if you do this, and you think it's interesting, or it's helpful, or it's not, I'd love to hear about it. So you can find me here, that's my email, or you can look me up on LinkedIn. Gregory Lutz, I work at Full Story, I live in Atlanta. Thank you. Yeah, I see one question here. How do you measure it continuously? I think it's really tough because trust is even hard to define, right? It's tacit knowledge. We intuitively understand it, but it's always really hard for us to describe. Now, over the long term, retention is the most obvious one. I think in the medium term, things like NPS or whatever you're doing to measure your customer satisfaction is going to be a pretty good proxy there. I mean, I remember years ago I worked on a small product. We did our first ever NPS. Got a ton of feedback. The scores weren't fantastic. I went out and everyone who responded I wrote an email to and tried to get a conversation going with. We did another NPS and the score basically like doubled, right? We hadn't really shipped that much. It was the fact that all of these people felt heard, right? And I think that's part of where like this idea really got planted, my idea of you have to build these relationships. You have to build this trust. And I think that might not be a perfect measurement, but I think it's a pretty good proxy.
Thinking about this and looking at your examples where calls to action for sharing came up very early
Yeah.
in the user journey, are there signals that one could look for, signals from the user that you can determine that maybe they're ready to move up that hierarchy, or is it really just about your understanding of their activation journey?
I mean, yeah, I would imagine there absolutely are. Again, I think it all starts with empathy, right? Like, on the first second, you're probably not ready to do anything. Like that's probably an easy one that we can all fix and solve quickly. But yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be product specific. You're going to dig into the analytics. Who are the people that actually stick with us over the long term? And I think that's part of the problem is we don't always look far enough and look back far enough. Say not just, hey, who gave us our email address, or who made one purchase, but what are the behaviors of the people 6 months ago that are still around?
Your examples of where you had all the sales figures, for instance, I thought that was pretty compelling, because I've sat in front of those and felt like I was wrong for. And so it made me think that maybe there's almost a library of both from a design perspective,
Yeah.
also best practices. So as you've been exploring this, what's come up with it for you?
I mean, I tried to throw in, are you talking about like trust builders and kind of trust destroyers that show up along the way?
I mean, it's one thing to put it in front of people and get feedback that way, but like, how do we ensure we created a trustworthy experience from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard thing to pull out of customer interviews. But I don't know, it's an idea that I think I'm still exploring myself. So yeah, I think like I found myself kind of building a library of like, hey, these are things that I think we can do that build trust. These are things I think we probably forget about that take away trust, and just starting with that list of things. And then I'm kind of slowly testing those ideas and seeing where we're right and where we're wrong. But yeah, like any other product management-y thing, right? Trying to find the right metric and just trying to talk to a lot of the users to tease it out. Any tips on how to build trust in the product for global products across cultures? A little bit. So I've been involved with localization efforts before. The most probably obvious but important thing that I found is you have to have some boots on the ground or partner with somebody in a different region if you really want to nail the messaging and nail the copy and nail the way that you're presenting it. Because if you don't have that kind of native resource, it gets really hard really fast. And it's so easy to mess up. Did I miss anything? How the metrics to measure trust varies between internal and external customers. I'm not sure I fully grokked the question. I don't know if... Well, if you asked it and you want to dive into it, again, shoot me an email and we can kind of dig into it and nerd out.
Greg, are there other metrics that you found super valuable at Full Story or elsewhere in terms of just overall product metrics, CS metrics, things like that?
I mean, they're always changing outside of things that really matter, like retention, right? So we've really kind of gone much farther down our retention analysis path at Full Story specifically. We also created something we call the customer love score, right? Which was like, hey, how do we really find out if companies are happy with us, right? Are they really getting the use they expect? I'd have to get my colleague Darren, he could give a whole speech on that one just alone. But yeah, I think we're constantly fighting for the best metric. I don't know that we found it yet, but some of the fun is in that journey.
You don't have to give away the secret sauce, but that customer love score, is that something that you guys like came up with internally, or it's sort of an amalgamation of a bunch of different metrics?
I wasn't intimately involved with the project, but I know it went through probably 2 or 3 internal iterations. And kind of we started very smart, very data science, very machine learning. We ended up kind of actually dumbing it down a little bit and said, hey, we'd rather it be a little bit wrong or a little bit simple but right more of the time than anything else. So it's like any other metric, right? Know that it's probably temporary. Don't overthink it, just get something out there to start the ball rolling. Awesome. Oh, yeah.
Some of the aspects
Yeah.
to be perceived as valid, that it's like if you give it a couple more years, you could throw that UI in front of somebody and they're like, okay, yeah, I get it. That's a pretty typical flow now. Like how much these things kind of evolve through exposure.
Yeah, I think it's a completely fair point. I still think there's a lot of risk in seeing that it worked for somebody, especially like a known brand name, and saying, oh, that will work for us as well. Because I think there is probably more comfort, especially with each generation, to give up more and more information. They're just used to that. At the same time, like the severity of things like data breaches and what gets done with that information continues to get worse. So I think it, it might actually end up balancing out a bit, where you also see kind of the rise of people really caring about privacy. So even if it's a common flow, I think it probably just gets more and more important. Awesome. Well, this was fun. Jason, thank you. Product Red Lions, thank you. Thank you all for the questions.